Part 1. The Discovery. Gerald Scottson had never been one to chase strange weather patterns. He was a weatherman, not a scientist. And his job was straightforward: predict the rain, warn people about snowstorms, and occasionally report on the wild phenomenon that nature threw at him. But when he started noticing the strange glowing balls in the sky, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. At first, they appeared as tiny pinpricks of light, barely noticeable against the blue canvas of a morning sky. Gerald had seen strange weather formations before: clouds that shaped themselves into impossible structures, or fog that rolled in from nowhere. But these weren't clouds or fog. They were balls of energy, floating silently above the horizon, moving with purpose. Quote, "He'd brought his equipment to the field a few times to try and measure them. Each time he did, they would follow him. At first, he thought it was a coincidence, but the more it happened, the more unsettling it became. It was as if the plasmoids, as he started calling them, were aware of his presence. They responded to his movements, gliding toward him, then retreating when he moved away. He felt their energy in the air, something powerful but calm, like an electric current just below the surface." Quote, "People across the country began noticing the plasmoids as well. Social media exploded with videos, grainy shots from smartphones, shaky footage of glowing balls moving in the sky. Some thought they were military experiments. Others speculated that they were alien spacecraft. A handful of conspiracy theorists claimed they were part of a covert government operation. Gerald was uncertain about what they were, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled onto something far more profound than just weather anomalies. Then, one evening, he decided to approach them. Quote, "With his testing equipment in hand, he stood in the middle of the field, staring up at the floating spheres. They circled him, closer now, their light pulsing rhythmically, almost as if they were watching him. His heart raced, but he knew he had to try something. His mind swirled with the stories he had heard, people claiming these things were dangerous, even hostile. But something in his gut told him otherwise. Taking a deep breath, Gerald extended his hand. He waited for a response." Quote, "To his surprise, one of the plasmoids drifted closer, its light brightening. Gerald flinched slightly. But then a strange sensation washed over him. It wasn't fear. It was more like a wave of energy, gentle yet profound, as if the plasmoid had transmitted something to him. It was not a voice or a word, just a feeling, a sense of peace, understanding. He could feel it then. These beings weren't random forces of nature. They were alive." Part 2. The Connection. Gerald couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. He had felt the plasmoid's presence deeply, as though they were communicating without words. He returned to the field again and again, always with the same equipment, trying to measure them. But they always seemed to elude full explanation. They followed him, yes, but more than that, they seemed to be aware of his every move. After several encounters, Gerald began to wonder if the plasmoids were connected to something larger than he could comprehend. A thought gnawed at him, until one night, standing alone in the field, he felt a strong urge to communicate again. Quote, "This time, instead of extending his hand, he spoke. 'What are you?' he asked, his voice quiet but clear in the night air. 'Why are you here?' Quote, nothing happened at first, but then, the energy around him shifted. The plasmoids seemed to pulse in a slow rhythm, their glow brighter now, like they were responding. And then, a wave of energy hit him, stronger than before, almost overwhelming. It wasn't harmful, but it was intense. Gerald stood frozen, trying to make sense of what he was feeling. This wasn't a simple phenomenon. These were beings conscious, aware, and purposeful. The plasmoids weren't just here by chance. They were sent here for a reason. Gerald felt that in the pit of his stomach. He didn't know how, but he knew now. These beings were trying to balance something big. Part 3. The Government's Interest. As Gerald's connection with the plasmoids deepened, the world around him grew increasingly aware of their existence. News reports flooded in about sightings of the glowing orbs. Theories began to swirl. Were they aliens? Experimental military technology? Or something else entirely? But the government was keeping its cards close to its chest. One day, after an unexpected encounter with the plasmoids, Gerald was contacted by a government agent. They had questions about his field studies. The message was clear. They knew what he had been up to, and they wanted him to stop. The agent made a vague threat about national security, about the importance of controlling the plasmoids before they became a global issue. Gerald didn't know what they meant by controlling, but he felt a chill down his spine. It wasn't long before he found out. His station fired him without warning, citing misconduct. His reputation was tarnished in the media. The whispers grew louder. Conspiracy theorists, the ones who'd called the plasmoids a government project, were now being proven right. Gerald had been blackballed from the industry. No one wanted to touch him, not with the rumors swirling. Quote. And then there was Peter Keithfield. Keithfield was the director of the Department of Technology Development, a shadowy government entity tied to military interests and corporate backers. Gerald had heard his name in passing. He was a key player in government tech projects, but Gerald never thought much about him. That is, until now. Peter had been tasked with capturing the plasmoids, harnessing their energy for national defense. But Gerald knew something wasn't right. UK's. These plasmoids weren't just powerful, they were alive. And if their energy were used for war, the consequences could be catastrophic. Part 4. The Dilemma. Gerald's world was crumbling. He was no longer a respected weatherman. Now he was a fugitive, hunted by the very government he once trusted. The plasmoids had become more than just an anomaly to him. They were the key to understanding everything. They were sent here by the gods to balance Earth's energy, to restore a natural harmony. But Peter Keithfield didn't see it that way. Keithfield and his backers had their own agenda control. They needed the plasmoids' energy to maintain the current system, to keep the world in chaos, to fuel wars, to oppress the masses. If the plasmoids' energy were balanced, the low-frequency waves that kept society docile would cease. People would wake up now. And that could mean the end of everything Keith Mossfield had worked for. Gerald had one choice. Expose the truth to the world, risking his life and the wrath of the government, or stay silent, letting humanity remain trapped in its cycle of fear and war.